What has been the biggest achievement of President John Mahama 8-9 months down the line from 7th January 2025? What has been his biggest failure? I'm going to do this analysis based on the lens and the view of the Chief Communication Officer, Felix Kwakye Ofosu. No, ni city kasaye. Wabubon sem ni bisu. Ebu amne ne yadwin. Ebu wa amne ne yadwin. The end amne ne yadwin. The end amne ne yadwin. We didn't bro on the critical analyst channel. Make sure to subscribe me. O subscribe na click bell notification. Me the video be atuma ubehu na watimi ahwebi again. Aja comment and so the comment section no. Ni na ye monko. Na be ko App Store pan rate ho ko download na fa send diska from baby a wo bia from America Amsterdam. Fa send diska brefie no mani nyi ho. Ba no so be so trust start ni bia. Monko broni wo no nya classes. So frɛ broni number no eno na ebeboa wo. President John Mahama buy no 8-9 years down the line here, and I don't know some fellas here doing a boomer. One of the sectors I mean kind of strong. President Mahama had the economy. Even when the city tumbled and as the city depreciated a Q3 year, Bloomberg describing it said the globally worst declining currency, it declined by 13%. You know. I still believe that the economy is strong. Didn't I make us? Fellas has agreed with me now. Metrics that will use to the agree or their agreement with me in any
of Ghanaians. Well, I think that it is pretty straightforward and obvious. In the lead up to the 2024 elections, the most topical issue right at the top of the wish list of Ghanaians was the economy. I mean, the economy was in total shambles. Hardships were pervasive. The cost of living was so high, and people simply struggled to make a living. And so President Mahama committed to addressing that. And you see that when we came into power, it was the first thing that we tackled. There was a need to stabilize the economy, stabilize the currency, stop the rapid depreciation that was undergoing at the time, and bring it to a level that led to significant reductions in the cost of living. And that has happened. Indeed, the price of everyday items reduced significantly. In fact, Guta met the Parliamentary Select Committee on Economy and Development. And when they were questioned, they showed data which proved that up to 4,500 different items had seen price reductions. And these are the people who actually do the trading. So there is no dispute that prices came down. Of course, there has been talk about the need for more price reductions, which we agree with. We think that the pass-through effect should be quicker and it should be much larger than we saw. But there is no dispute that prices came down, at least fuel prices came down. They are not currently at the same level that we inherited it. Of course, in the last 2 or 3 windows, it's gone up a bit, but it is still below where we found it. Transport fares went down by about 15%, if I'm not mistaken. And basic goods and services also saw price reduction. So these are the things that I would say have mattered most, in addition to all the things that have happened.
The city that you celebrate, which is the basis for all of this, there's a view that the growth or the strength was artificial and that the fundamentals are weak, and so we are seeing the city struggle again already. And that is too early for us to celebrate.
Economic debates, economic discussions, commentary on the economy is all based on facts and figures. You see, those figures are objective. They are not subject to opinion. When the finance minister presented the media budget, he presented the figures, which cannot be disputed. There is not a single metric that is out of gear that you can say points to a weak foundation. The thing with the cedi is that the exchange rate is like any other commodity. It thrives on demand and supply. So you need forex or foreign exchange or foreign currency to engage in some activity, importation or some other business. If it is available, the price is cheap. If it is scarce, the price is high. If you go to the market today and a crate of tomatoes or tomatoes is available, a crate will be cheaper than when it is scarce. That's all that it is. It is the duty of government to ensure, at least with the currency, the economic climate that we are in, that there is sufficient foreign exchange available for people like yourself who may want to travel or do some business. That is all that there is. So what did we do? There are traditional sources for foreign exchange, remittances, export proceeds, and what have you. In the past, these have proven inadequate to give us the sort of forex liquidity that will ensure stability or a lower exchange rate. So there was a need to take additional measures. We found that, look, Ghana exports gold in significant quantities. But not all that gold is accounted for, and that the proceeds of those exports don't get to us the way that it should. And I have often cited the experience of the late Pakwesi Emisata, His Excellency. He went to India for a conference. Then in his speech, he indicated the quantity of gold that in that year had been exported from Ghana to India. When he finished, the Indian Trade Minister, who was also present at the event, gave a speech and indicated that the quantities are larger than the Vice President quoted. Immediately, he drew attention to the fact that significant quantities of gold were leaving our shores through unapproved routes, and that we're not getting the earnings. So there was a need to put in place a mechanism to ensure that we have a handle on this kind of export and that the proceeds come back into this country so that we can have foreign exchange to put on the market when necessary. So the Gold Board was established. Through their efforts, they've been able to mop up such that between January and now, or the last record, which is about a month ago, $6 billion had been accrued from gold exports. The same time last year, it was barely half of the figure that I'm quoting. So it means that about $3 billion or so left the shores of this country unaccounted for.
Yes, so that is the chief government communication platform. Now, journalists, we don't only report the news, we look at the fact. When you look at our inflation, for example, inflation, the cost of living in Nippon or Matibio Mokotoniama at the same Okoduma with Mito Ade NSA Manema. When you look at inflation, for example, at December 2024, now inflation 23.8%. So the MPP left inflation around 23.8%. Currently, when you look at our inflation numbers, Ghana Statistical Service by September. So meaning that August inflation, you know, Ghana Statistical Service, the inflation for August is 11.5%. So inflation has almost halved. And just say nyama boatia from gidi but say na nyama boaden kofano in 2024 no eswatia ba intine bia na man to be ade na 1 cedi na beka ho and 50%, which is good news for the people. Currency no so my analysis na chrew say na 15 point something MPP kono, even the West na 15.5 in February. Say roughly around 12, averagely 13. Backless I catch say we end the year with the cedi around 12. So that is also some good signs. I mean, Felix economy there and the stability of president there on the economy, he's doing well. Now, interview him now, ana issues of Galamsey by baby. I may against I want a president may fail, but what they on your West no. Felix, I consider say a man for ne yemu be a year teams Galamsey the president Mahama anyade no ne yading. Na they do no ne yading say no kind.
Unions wanted to go on strike on President Akufo-Addo. They took a lot of negotiation to get them not to. Your party enjoyed from that anger from the public, and it would be part of the reasons you got the huge votes or the huge number of votes you got at the polls. You have come around and you appear to be pussyfooting on the issue of Galamsey. Declare state of emergency so that there will be sanity before we move back into there. And you are saying that you will not do it. The Catholic Bishops' Conference issued a statement today. They are saying that do what is right, and what is right is calling for a state of emergency, among other steps that you should take in dealing with Galamsey. Is it the case that you have seen the Galamsey problem now, and you are either benefiting from it or you are scared of it, so you are not acting?
Well, Mario, let me indicate that the Catholic Bishops' Conference and all other sections of the Ghanaian population who have commented on Galamsey are right to demand action from government. Indeed, Galamsey has been a major issue for the better part of 15 years now. And the previous government completely failed to address it. I have said it and I'll repeat it. That government was complicit in Galamsey. Their party hierarchy was involved. Indeed, Professor Frimpong Boateng, who they themselves chose to lead the fight, has a report which is damning and shows the involvement of government officials, party officials. He has gone on record to have said that Galamsey was a major source of financing for the new patriotic party. So it was little wonder that they were not interested in fighting it.
And that's why they lost the election.
Absolutely. And Ghanaians were right to throw them out in the manner that they did. The Ghanaians showed righteous indignation. And it is right that they did so. Ghanaians are right to demand action from this government. We are alive to that responsibility. Since we've been in power, we've done a number of things. So if you want to see whether the situation has improved or it has worsened, you need to look at the hard cold facts. What were the facts? when we came into power in January 2025, an assessment showed that as of that time, there were 288 forest reserves. Out of these 288 forest reserves, Galamsey threatened 44 of them. In other words, there was some Galamsey activity in 44 of them. 9 out of those 44 had been completely taken over by armed gangs who were doing as they pleased and superintending Galamsey on a massive scale. Now, what is the situation? The situation now is that all the 9 forest reserves have been repossessed by government through the Galamsey Task Force.
Which forest reserve? Where are they located?
I can give you a list.
Okay.
But it is a matter of public record. There's no dispute about it.
Okay.
They have been taken over by government again. Of course, you do know that once that is done and the task force moves, some unscrupulous elements try to go back, but we are still pursuing them. So those 9 are no longer under the control of these armed bandits who were doing Galamsey. So if you have a situation where at the beginning of the year, 9 forest reserves were under the control of armed bandits who were doing Galamsey, and now that is not the situation, that is a clear improvement. Now the larger 44 have also seen some increased activity by government to ensure that we flush out these elements. But of course, we will be the last to say that Galamsey has been overcome. It has by no means been overcome. There are still people who are doing Galamsey, and we are going after them. Now, how have we done this? Now, we formed what we call the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operation Center, 8months, which brings together all the stakeholders who are playing a role in fighting Galamsey. So the military, the police, other technical personnel, and what have you. So that it becomes a coordinating center, so that the fight is properly structured, because there were disparate groups, all of whom worked towards a common objective. But every now and then you hear reports about excesses and abuse. There were every reports of extortion and all that. In order to gain control of the situation and ensure that the fight is coordinated, 8months has been set up. So that gives you a structure that forms the foundation upon which you move against Galamsey. Number 2, what are the tangible outcomes? Apart from reclaiming the 9 forest reserves, as I speak to you, there are 1,400 people who have been arrested and are waiting trial. The Attorney General informs that he will soon set up a special court to hasten their prosecution so that it will serve as a major deterrent to people who are minded to go into it. Umaru, over 440 excavators have been seized, some of which have been destroyed. You recall that under the MP, when excavators were seized, we were told that they had been stolen and shared amongst party people. We cannot account for them, but that is not the case today. 300 shamfans, and you know what shamfans are? They are some contraptions that
people
put on the river and stir the riverbed, and that's what creates the turbidity, that increases the turbidity levels and destroys the quality of the water. 300 of those equipment have been seized, many of them destroyed. And in fact, there are efforts to dechemicalize the water. In other words, put in material that would ensure that we reverse the deterioration in quality. In addition to this, 900 water pumps that these Galamseyers used have been confiscated. In fact, only last week, the Agric Minister shared this for farmers to use to irrigate their lands, water their lands. So this has been done. We also noticed, upon assumption of power, that there was an unusual influx of excavators. The records show that we now have about 200 excavators imported into Ghana every day. So we said no, this must be looked into. Excavators in themselves are not designed to be used for illegal mining. They are construction equipment. So there are legitimate construction firms that import these for their business. There are also legitimate companies involved in lawful mining who use this equipment. But there are unscrupulous people who import them and use it for this nefarious Galamsey activity. So what did government do? We said, no, we are now going to impound it and find out whether indeed these excavators are being imported for legitimate purposes. So indeed, in the last 8 months or so, 2 months, we impounded 1,300 excavators. It took up a large tract of space at the ports. So on 22nd August, GPHA put out a notification that they were going to move these excavators to decongest the port so that containers can have space to be packed. Some of your colleagues in the media reported this as though at midnight, Galamseyers were being allowed to clear these excavators to go and engage in Galamsey. And that's what has added to this latest round of public brouhaha. But it was false reportage.
There you go.
GPHA put out clear notification. And in fact, I invite your crew to go to Burma camp. I can facilitate that. you will see the excavators, some of which are parked there, some of which are parked at Michelle Camp and other places under military guard, so that nobody can dare go there and move it without express authorization from the appropriate quarters. Now, 1,300 of them have been impounded. As I speak to you, every excavator that is imported and cleared legitimately is tracked. A tracking device is installed so that we can follow the movement of that excavator. There's something they call geofencing, which means that the tracker is programmed such that if you move the excavator beyond the area you say you are going to use it for construction or lawful mining purposes, you will be identified and the excavator can be disabled. So all these are being done in order to ensure that we make substantial progress in the fight against Galamsey. Let me make it clear that President Mahama is committed, absolutely committed, to weeding out Galamsey. Also, let me indicate that we made specific commitments in the fight against Galamsey. We spoke about banning new mining activity in forest reserves. And indeed, it's been implemented. As I speak to you, since we came to power, no lease has been granted to anybody to mine, whether lawful or unlawful, in a forest reserve.
So all these things you said sound great. The only question is, why are you not imposing a state of emergency?
Again, you see, President Mahama answered that.
Yes.
President Mahama answered that at the media encounter.
The answer was not satisfactory, and that's why we are seeing a lot of the questions.
Well, I'm not sure that it was not satisfactory. You see, one of the things that needs to happen is that the conversation has to be such that we listen to all the issues that are raised. First of all, a state of emergency is a very severe measure. It comes with curbs in freedoms.
But you knew about this in opposition.
Yeah, but we have never called for a state of emergency. We never did. Let me correct it. We didn't say that we will impose a state of emergency. At the time that the state of emergency discussion came up in opposition, 9 forest reserves were under the control of bandits. That is no longer the situation. President Mahama says that the conventional methods we are using, if it is ramped up, can achieve the objective. But he is prepared anytime it becomes necessary to impose a state of emergency to do so. And I'm indicating that the state of emergency comes with certain measures.
So the conditions are not ripe for that.
He does not believe now that the conditions are ripe yet. But he believes certainly that the actions we are taking must be increased, they must be intensified. In fact, let me tell you that now, all the 44 areas that are threatened by Galamsey, there's going to be permanent military presence. In the past, they go and flash out the characters engaged in Galamsey and then they leave. But now they will have permanent military presence. All riverine areas, in other words, all the rivers that we have will have permanent military presence. In addition to this, we have the blue water guards. The idea is to ensure that up to 2,000 of them are trained by the close of year. Now, we have close to 1,000 now. Their role is to complement the efforts of the security agencies to monitor the rivers and immediately alert 8months and other entities involved about the presence of these people so that action can be taken.
Yes. So he concedes, we have a point. Ghanaians have every right to question the Galamsey fight so far, but interventions are muyeni. My disagreement with that school of thought is that President Mahama interventions are muyeni improvement. Ghana water still say a plant no almost shati bi because if you know one soon no the go machine me be say not mean tie ni. Enti papa eno de Felix menemo nyaden. Intervention amaye nyina no emfa bibia maye. Now saying Catholic Bishop Conference statement on the buy, or Macawum, UTAC statement on the Macawum, and Galamsey dear, and ya dear Yakua as ye dim kunim bisa, ye nin kunim. But yes, what on code and way in the bear economy, dear. If I'll be a hypocrite to say the economy and the present moment is relatively better. Even Petroni, so do maybe na Petrona yako 20 cedi, and then between 12 and 13. So I will not sit here and say economy in Koye, economy dear. My ade. But Galamsey the area fell a video can't catch up a pass of one yard and yet because the you see so obi sa back one the repercussions chemicals no. In fact, Ghana water is soon by a fee no. Say if you don't know, let me tell you. Ghana water is soon by a fee no. Treating heavy metals like they do in the US and the UK no. They treat turbidity in so na put on a nina water and one no. Heavy metals, they don't use now chlorine, echo heavy metal. Just Google or just read on it. And so I'm happy that to consider this Galamsey in Koye. I'm happy, and I'm also happy so because economic stability you're not so no kremayade. But Galamsey Bojoma said they be tare ho. Munkomayen. Share your comments with me. Now you are subscribe. Go subscribe na click bell notification. No me video bi atuma. Metimi ehu na wahwe bi share ma wonu bi hu wie no na beka minister na nsa ye be da hu na again no beko App Store pan rate or download na fa di udwuma wie nso a broni classes ma ba ne nkotrebe na beboa no manya exclusive document bi on big push no the 160 district omo kwan nya ye be mo 10 kilometer of road every year. That is about 40 kilometers during the time of President John Mahama. To sha 164 no ye be mo 160 by 40. You have almost 6,400 kilometers of road, which is quite huge. Many documents, me free and now I'll try and do those analysis for you. Me that's so shame. I mean, can't say they be I mean, come here on Ghana, see here. Show you, bye bye.